Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we open a quiet page from history, a story not of kings or knights, but of children who once lived long ago in the winding villages and stone towns of the Middle Ages. Before we begin, if you enjoy gentle journeys through history, remember to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're listening from, and subscribe so you never miss another calming story. As the candlelight flickers in a humble cottage, we imagine a child stirring from sleep, perhaps on a bed of straw, the morning chill seeping through wooden walls, the day beginning with chores, laughter, and simple dreams. Childhood in the medieval world was unlike today, a time of little play but endless wonder, a mixture of joy and hardship, where young hearts learned early about work, yet still found ways to chase the sun across open fields. Close your eyes as we wander back, step by step, into the past, to see how children once grew, what they learned, what they feared, and what small joys filled their days. Imagine a small village tucked between rolling hills, the morning mist curling around wooden cottages where chickens cluck and the faint smell of baked bread drifts through the air. Here, a young boy named Thomas stirs from sleep, his straw bed cold and stiff, but his heart already racing with anticipation of the day ahead. Thomas's home is simple, a low-roofed cottage of timber and clay, shared with his little sister Margaret and his mother and father, whose hands are worn and strong from endless work. Before the sun has fully risen, Thomas helps with chores, fetching water from the well, gathering firewood, feeding the small herd of goats that wander near the fence. Even at his young age, every task feels both ordinary and monumental, and yet he performs them with a careful pride, knowing that his family relies on him. By mid-morning, the village comes alive. Other children appear from cottages, laughing and calling each other across the muddy streets, their shoes worn thin, clothes patched, but their eyes shining with imagination. They play games that echo through the alleys, leaping over ditches, chasing each other with sticks, pretending to be knights defending a castle or merchants haggling over pretend coins, their laughter ringing clear over the hum of the village. Yet even amidst this play, danger and challenge are never far away. A stray dog barks fiercely, chasing the children from the mill road. A sudden shout from a farmer signals a runaway cart, forcing Thomas and his friends to dive behind barrels, hearts pounding, adrenaline sharp in their veins. These small perils teach lessons about quick thinking, courage, and awareness. Lessons that grown-ups must learn the hard way, but children here absorb naturally as part of daily life. As noon approaches, Thomas's mother calls him home. Inside the cottage, the smell of stew simmers over the hearth, and Margaret sits mending clothes with tiny, careful stitches. The children eat quickly, hungrily, and then retreat for a brief moment of quiet reflection. Thomas looks out the window at the fields beyond, where the distant hills are alive with movement, farmers working, animals grazing, wind rustling the trees, and he wonders about the world beyond the village, the lands he might one day see, the adventures he might encounter when he is older. After the meal, chores continue. Thomas helps his father repair the fence, learning to drive nails straight and balancing on beams with care. He feels a thrill in these small feats, an excitement that comes from mastering something just beyond his current abilities. Margaret, meanwhile, tends to the chickens, her small hands gentle but quick, collecting eggs while keeping an eye out for foxes that roam the forest edge. By late afternoon, the children are allowed a brief hour of play again. Thomas and his friends explore a nearby stream, slipping on mossy stones, fascinated by the tiny creatures hidden beneath the water. He watches minnows dart between rocks, a frog leaps suddenly from a lily pad, and his mind fills with stories. Tales of rivers that might carry boats to distant lands, of magical forests where animals speak, of daring adventures just beyond the horizon. But the day is not without lessons. A traveling monk passes through the village, his robes dusty, his eyes kind but piercing. He gathers the children under the shade of a great oak tree, telling stories of saints, of distant kingdoms, of the struggles of life, and the rewards of courage and honesty. Thomas listens, rapt and wide-eyed, his imagination soaring, yet understanding the seriousness behind the words, for life in these times is fragile, uncertain, and always demanding. As evening falls, the sky turns a deep amber and shadows stretch across the village streets. Lanterns are lit, smoke rises from chimneys, and the children return home, exhausted but exhilarated, their hearts full of both play and wonder, their minds buzzing with the day's lessons and with dreams of tomorrow's adventures yet to come. Tonight, Thomas lies down once again on his straw mattress, listening to the gentle coo of doves outside the window, the soft wind brushing the wooden walls, and the distant laughter of neighbors, settling into sleep. He thinks of the day, the thrill of near danger, the triumphs of little tasks, the magic glimpsed in streams and forests, and the endless curiosity that will guide him through childhood and beyond. And as Thomas drifts toward sleep, we too are carried along, feeling the rhythm of medieval life, its joys and challenges, its ordinary marvels, and its small hidden adventures waiting to be discovered. Thomas drifts deeper into sleep, his breath slow and even. But the world around him does not pause. Outside the cottage, the wind shifts, carrying with it the scent of rain and the rustle of leaves that seem almost alive. Shadows play across the walls as the moon rises higher, casting silver light on the straw mattress where he lies. In his dreams, the day's adventures take on a life of their own. The stream becomes a rushing river. The forest beyond the village grows taller and darker, and the small frogs and minnows seem to whisper secrets of hidden paths and unseen creatures. Yet, even in sleep, Thomas's senses remain alert. A sudden creak from the floorboards makes him stir, and he wonders if it is a fox slipping quietly through the underbrush, or perhaps some stranger wandering too close to the village. His heart beats faster for a moment, a thrill of fear mixed with excitement, and then he sinks back, reassured by the familiar presence of his little sister snuggled nearby and the soft glow of embers fading in the hearth. Morning comes slowly, the sky painted in pale pinks and oranges, and Thomas rises again, still sleepy but eager. Today promises new adventures, for there is talk in the village of travelers passing through with news from the nearby town, merchants bringing strange trinkets, and perhaps even a storyteller who will recount tales of distant lands and brave heroes. Thomas dresses quickly in his patched tunic, tugs on his worn boots, and slips quietly out of the cottage, careful not to wake Margaret. The dew is still thick on the grass, and he feels the chill bite at his fingers and toes. Yet the thrill of the unknown pushes him forward. Along the road, he meets other children, their eyes bright with curiosity and mischief. They whisper about what the travelers might bring, exchanging guesses of golden coins, enchanted objects, or magical creatures hiding in the folds of the merchants' carts. Their imaginations run wild, and soon a game begins, chasing each other among the carts and barrels, pretending to uncover hidden treasures, dodging the occasional goat or chicken that wanders too close. As the day unfolds, Thomas's father calls him to help repair a section of the wooden fence along the pasture. It is laborious work, lifting heavy beams, hammering nails with precision, balancing on uneven logs. Each movement is careful, deliberate, but Thomas feels an exhilaration in mastering these tasks, a sense of pride in doing something grown-ups rely on. Margaret helps nearby, humming softly as she collects eggs, her small hands nimble and quick. Yet even in these chores, adventure lurks. An unexpected stumble on the beams, a misplaced hammer threatening to roll down the hill, sparks from the fire suddenly dancing too close to the dry straw. Each small incident sends Thomas's pulse quickening, teaching him lessons of attention, caution, and courage that will serve him for years to come. By afternoon, the travelers arrive. A tall man with a long cloak, eyes sharp and gleaming, steps from the wagon and begins to tell a story. Thomas and the other children gather close, mesmerized, as the man speaks of mountains so high their peaks pierce the clouds, rivers that run silver under moonlight, and creatures that walk the forests unseen by any human eye. The children gasp, their minds swimming with images of dragons, enchanted forests, and secret passages hidden beneath ancient ruins. Thomas leans forward, barely breathing, as he imagines himself exploring these far-off lands, battling unseen dangers, and discovering wonders beyond his wildest dreams. The thrill of possibility fills him, yet he is grounded in the simple comforts of his village. The smell of baking bread, the warmth of the hearth, the laughter of friends, and the stories feel like bridges, connecting the small world he knows to the vast, mysterious world he longs to see. Evening draws near, the sky deepening to shades of crimson and purple, and the children reluctantly return home, hearts full of awe and minds swirling with ideas. Thomas helps his father lead the goats back to the pen, careful with each step, while Margaret lights the lanterns that will guide the family through the twilight. The wind whispers across the hills, carrying hints of rain and the faint scent of wildflowers from the fields. As night settles, Thomas reflects on the day, on the small dangers faced, the wonders glimpsed, the friendships strengthened, and the dreams sparked in a young boy's heart. Each moment, each lesson, each thrill of the unknown has shaped him, carving the memory of childhood deep into the fabric of his being. Finally, as the last light fades from the sky and the village falls silent, Thomas curls beneath his straw blanket once more. He imagines himself navigating the enchanted forests of the storyteller's tale, leaping over rushing streams and discovering hidden treasures. His eyelids grow heavy. His mind floats between reality and dreams, and a gentle sense of contentment settles over him. The night carries him fully now, the wind singing softly through the trees, the distant sound of an owl echoing across the fields, and Thomas drifts into the deep, untroubled sleep of a medieval child, ready to meet the adventures of tomorrow. Morning arrives with a gentle glow over the village, painting the rooftops and hills with soft amber light. Thomas awakens once more, stretching his stiff limbs and listening to the familiar sounds of the morning, the low bleat of goats, the distant crow of a rooster, the rustle of leaves stirred by a mild breeze. Today feels different, as if the day itself carries a secret promise, a whisper of adventure hidden just beyond the familiar paths of the village. After helping his mother fetch water and preparing a simple breakfast of bread and cheese, Thomas sets off towards the edge of the forest with a small group of children, their imaginations alive with possibility and mischief. The path winds through the fields, dotted with wildflowers and stones slick with dew, and each step carries both caution and excitement. The stories of the previous day still linger in his mind, the enchanted forests, the distant mountains, the mysterious creatures, and Thomas feels a curious pull to explore, to imagine himself as a brave traveler in a world far larger than the one he knows. As they near the forest's edge, the trees rise tall and dark, their branches forming arches that sway in the morning breeze, casting patterned shadows on the ground. The children tread carefully, yet with eager hearts, stepping over roots and peering into nooks where rabbits might hide or birds might suddenly take flight. Thomas's eyes catch movement in the underbrush, tiny, quick shadows that vanish before he can fully discern them, stirring a thrill of suspense in his chest. He imagines the forest teeming with hidden paths, secret doors, and creatures that only appear to those daring enough to look closely. Every rustle of leaves, every chirp of a bird, every crack of a twig beneath his foot becomes a spark for stories in his mind, stories that mingle seamlessly with the whispered tales of the traveling storyteller. Hours pass as the children explore deeper, discovering a small stream glittering under the sunlight, stones perfectly placed for hopping, and a fallen tree forming a natural bridge across the water. Thomas balances carefully, heart pounding, as he steps from branch to branch, and a sudden splash sends him laughing with exhilaration. The other children cheer and imitate his daring moves, their laughter mingling with the babble of the stream and the gentle hum of the forest. In these moments, Thomas experiences the delicate blend of danger and delight, a reminder that the world is wide and full of mysteries, even just beyond the edge of his familiar village. Eventually, the group comes upon a hollow in an ancient oak tree, its gnarled roots twisting like the limbs of a giant. Inside, they discover small nests of birds and signs of animals that have made the hollow a temporary home. Thomas crouches close, holding his breath, fascinated by the life hidden in plain sight, and he feels a quiet awe at the complexity and beauty of the natural world. The forest teaches patience, observation, and respect, and Thomas absorbs these lessons without fully realizing it, just as he absorbed the lessons of courage and cleverness in the village chores and small daily perils. Every adventure, no matter how brief, is a teacher in this medieval childhood. As the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the forest floor, the children reluctantly make their way back to the village. Thomas lingers for a moment, gazing at the trees and imagining all the stories they could tell if only one could listen closely enough. The forest feels alive, almost knowing, as if it has shared its secrets with those who take the time to notice. Once home, Thomas helps his mother with evening tasks, carrying water, sweeping the floor, tending to the animals, and feels a quiet satisfaction in the balance between adventure and responsibility. Each small task, each small triumph, has its own kind of magic, and Thomas carries it within him as he prepares for the night. Night falls slowly, the sky awash in deep purples and blues, and lanterns flicker in every window. Thomas crawls beneath his straw mattress, listening to the familiar sounds of the village settling into rest. Yet sleep does not arrive immediately, for his mind is alive with the day's discoveries, the forest's hidden corners, the creatures glimpsed, the exhilaration of balance and risk, and the stories that will continue to unfold tomorrow. His eyelids grow heavy, his body relaxes, and slowly Thomas drifts into dreams once more, where the adventures of the forest and the mysteries of distant lands blend seamlessly with the comfort of home, the warmth of family, and the knowledge that each day, each moment, carries its own quiet wonders waiting to be discovered. Dawn spreads slowly over the village, soft rays of light spilling through the gaps in the wooden shutters. Thomas awakens with a quiet excitement in his chest, remembering the forest adventures of yesterday and feeling a pull toward new discoveries. He dresses quickly, tugging his boots over his small feet, and steps into the crisp morning air, where dew clings to grass and the distant hills glimmer with promise. The village is stirring, cows lowing in the pastures, merchants calling from stalls already set up along the main road, and the scent of fresh bread wafting from the baker's oven. Thomas joins his friends near the village square, where other children are gathering, their eyes wide with expectation, whispering about the new day and sharing stories of yesterday's playful daring. Today, the children decide they will explore the ruins of the old watchtower that stands on a hill just beyond the river, a place rumored to hold hidden passageways, secret rooms, and maybe even treasures left behind by long-forgotten villagers. The climb to the tower is steep and covered with loose stones, the path twisting around tall grasses and thorny bushes. Thomas leads the way, careful yet eager, imagining himself as a young knight on a mission, his friends as loyal companions. Each step is a small triumph over fatigue and uncertainty, a test of balance and courage as the children carefully maneuver around rocks and roots. Halfway up, Thomas spots a small fox darting between the bushes, its reddish coat glimmering in the sunlight, and he feels a thrill of wonder mixed with a pang of fear, knowing that nature holds both beauty and danger. The fox pauses, staring at the group for a moment, then vanishes into the undergrowth, leaving the children buzzing with excitement and stories to tell later. At the top of the hill, the old watchtower rises like a silent sentinel, its stones weathered and moss-covered, windows like dark eyes peering over the landscape. Thomas and his friends approach cautiously, pushing open the heavy wooden door with a groan that echoes through the empty rooms. Inside, the air smells of dust, old stone, and something faintly sweet, perhaps moss or decay mixed with sun-warmed earth. They explore each room slowly, hands trailing along rough walls, eyes scanning for hidden nooks or treasures. A loose stone in the corner catches Thomas's attention, and with careful fingers, he shifts it aside to reveal a small hollow, inside which rests a faded piece of parchment. The children gather close, holding their breath as Thomas unfolds it, a crude map drawn long ago, perhaps by a child who once played in these same rooms. The map hints at secret staircases and hidden chambers within the tower, sparking a wave of curiosity and imagination among the group. As they follow the map, climbing narrow staircases and ducking under low beams, Thomas feels the thrill of adventure rush through him. Every shadow becomes a potential mystery, every sound a possible clue. A sudden creak in the stairs makes him freeze for a heartbeat, heart pounding, only to discover a small mouse scurrying along the stone floor. Laughter erupts among the children, the tension melting into joy and camaraderie. The tower, once silent and somber, transforms into a playground of imagination, where the lines between reality and fantasy blur, and each child becomes a hero in their own unfolding tale. By mid-afternoon, the sun has moved high and the village below grows smaller in view. Yet, Thomas and his friends remain immersed in the tower's secrets. They find a narrow slit in the stone wall, just wide enough to peer through, revealing the river winding like a silver ribbon through the landscape. Boats glide slowly along the water, their sails catching the sun, and Thomas imagines himself traveling to distant lands, guided by the river to adventures yet unknown. Time passes unnoticed as they explore hidden corners, find small relics of the past, and share whispered stories of knights, fairies, and creatures of legend. Every discovery, no matter how small, becomes a treasure. Every shared glance and laugh a memory that will linger long after the day ends. Evening approaches, painting the sky in oranges and purples, and the children finally descend the hill, reluctant to leave their magical playground. Thomas carries with him a small carved figure found in a forgotten corner, a reminder of the day's discoveries, a token of bravery and curiosity. Back in the village, chores await: feeding animals, fetching water, preparing the evening meal. But even these tasks carry a newfound sense of purpose and excitement, colored by the day's adventures. As night settles, Thomas lays down on his straw mattress once more, the weight of the day blending into dreams. In sleep, the tower transforms into a realm of endless possibilities, secret passages stretching farther than the eye can see. And Thomas, a small boy in a simple village, becomes a traveler, an explorer, and a hero in a world alive with wonder and mystery. Morning sunlight spilled gently across the village, casting long shadows over the cobblestone paths. Thomas stirred from sleep, the warmth of the rising sun brushing his face, and he felt a familiar mix of excitement and curiosity. Yesterday's adventures at the watchtower still danced in his mind, and he could not wait to see what today might bring. He dressed quickly, tugging on his patched tunic and boots, and stepped outside where the crisp morning air greeted him. Other children had already gathered near the village square, whispering eagerly about small plans for the day. Today, they decided they would explore the edge of the river, where the reeds grew tall and the waters ran deep and mysterious. Thomas and his friends walked together, balancing carefully on muddy banks and stepping over tangled roots. Along the way, they spotted birds darting between reeds and insects skimming the water's surface. Each discovery was met with exclamations and laughter, their imaginations transforming the ordinary landscape into a realm of adventure. A sudden splash made them jump, and they realized a fish had leapt from the water, glittering briefly in the sunlight before disappearing again. Thomas felt a thrill of excitement, imagining hidden creatures beneath the river's surface, waiting to be discovered. By mid-morning, the children reached a bend in the river where the waters slowed, forming small pools shaded by overhanging branches. They carefully stepped onto stones, hopping from one to another, hearts racing as they tested their balance. Thomas noticed a hollow log near the water's edge and crouched down, peering inside. He found a collection of small, smooth stones and some reeds that could be fashioned into tiny boats. The children began to race their makeshift boats across the pools, cheering and laughing as they tumbled into the water. Even amidst this play, Thomas remained alert, imagining scenarios where the boats carried secret messages to faraway lands or delivered hidden treasures to unseen friends. Afternoon arrived with a soft golden light, and Thomas's mother called him back to the cottage to help with chores. Though part of him wanted to stay by the river, he obeyed, knowing the work was important. Together with Margaret, he fed the goats, gathered firewood, and swept the floor, finding small moments of satisfaction and pride in completing these tasks well. Even these simple duties were filled with tiny adventures. A goat attempting to escape, a loose bundle of sticks threatening to topple, and Margaret mischievously hiding a small stone in Thomas's pocket as a joke. Each incident brought laughter and a sense of shared accomplishment. As evening approached, the village settled into quiet preparation for the night. Lanterns were lit. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the soft murmur of conversations filled the air. Thomas reflected on the day, on the fun by the river, the discoveries made, the small challenges overcome, and the laughter shared with friends. He felt a gentle satisfaction, a quiet joy that comes from a day well spent. Crawling into his straw mattress, he let the day's memories wash over him, his imagination blending the playful adventures of reality with dreams of far-off places and daring exploits yet to come. With a deep breath, Thomas drifted into sleep, ready to greet the next day as adventures with the same curiosity and courage that had guided him through childhood thus far. Morning light filtered softly through the wooden shutters, and Thomas awoke to the familiar sounds of the village stirring. Today, the air felt particularly crisp, carrying the faint scent of baking bread and dew-covered grass. Thomas stretched and glanced toward Margaret, still curled up in her blanket and quietly dressed. The children of the village had gathered near the edge of the pasture, whispering eagerly about exploring the abandoned barn at the far end, a place rumored to be filled with forgotten tools, hidden corners, and perhaps even a few secret surprises left behind by the adults. Thomas's heart raced at the idea. The thrill of venturing into a place less known was irresistible. The walk to the barn was filled with chatter and laughter. The wooden structure loomed ahead, old and weathered, its paint faded and roof slanted with age. Thomas led the way, pushing open the creaking door with care. Inside, dust motes floated in shafts of sunlight, and the smell of hay and old wood was strong. Every corner seemed to hold a possibility, A stack of barrels might hide treasures, a loose floorboard could reveal a secret passage, and the shadows themselves seemed alive, dancing across the walls. The children crept through the barn, peering into every nook, testing their courage with each step and giggling at imagined dangers lurking in the corners. At the back of the barn, Thomas discovered a small wooden crate, its lid slightly ajar. Inside were old farming tools and a few bundles of rope, but tucked beneath them he found a small, intricately carved wooden bird. Its tiny wings seemed almost ready to flutter, and Thomas held it gently, imagining it soaring over the village, carrying messages to far-off lands. His friends gathered around, eyes wide with curiosity, and each child took turns holding the bird, weaving stories of flying adventures and hidden kingdoms. Even as the afternoon sun warmed the barn, the shadows continued to play tricks, creating shapes and patterns that fueled their imaginations further. After hours of exploration, the children reluctantly left the barn, carrying small treasures and a sense of victory in their discoveries. The walk back was lively, filled with retelling each daring moment, each secret corner, and each imagined adventure. Thomas's mind swirled with possibilities, imagining himself as an explorer mapping unknown lands, discovering hidden forests, and befriending magical creatures along the way. Back in the village, chores awaited. He fed the goats, helped sweep the courtyard, and carried water from the well. Each task felt lighter, colored by the day's excitement and the stories he had built in his imagination. As evening fell, Thomas sat quietly by the window, gazing at the golden sky melting into deep purples and blues. He thought of the barn, the carved bird, and the laughter shared with his friends, realizing that even ordinary places could hold extraordinary adventures if one looked closely enough. Crawling into his straw mattress, Thomas hugged the wooden bird close, letting the warmth of the day and the thrill of imagination lull him into a peaceful sleep. Outside, the village was calm, the wind soft against the cottages, and the stars began to twinkle, as if watching over the dreams of a young boy whose heart was full of curiosity, courage, and wonder. The sun rose slowly over the village, casting a warm golden light across the fields and rooftops. Thomas stirred from his straw mattress, stretching his arms and listening to the gentle sounds of morning, the low murmur of goats, birds calling from the trees, and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. Today promised something new, for the children had decided to venture to the edge of the meadow where the forest met the open fields, a place whispered about in the village as holding mysterious sights and small secrets for those brave enough to explore. Thomas dressed quickly, slipping into his patched tunic and worn boots, and joined his friends, each carrying small treasures or simple tools to aid their journey. The walk to the meadow was filled with quiet excitement. Wildflowers brushed against their legs, dew sparkled on tall grasses, and the occasional butterfly flitted past, drawing gasps of delight. Thomas led the way, balancing carefully over uneven ground, imagining himself as a scout for a distant king, sent to explore uncharted lands. Each step brought new discoveries. A hidden burrow of rabbits, a small pond reflecting the sky like a polished mirror, and tiny footprints along the soft earth that hinted at creatures unseen. The children whispered in awe, their imaginations turning ordinary sights into enchanted mysteries. A sudden rustle in the grass made them freeze, and Thomas's heart leapt with both fear and exhilaration, only to see a hedgehog scuttling quickly away, its tiny spines catching the morning light. Laughter followed, a shared moment of relief and joy, bonding the children in their small adventure. By mid-morning, they reached the old stone wall that bordered the meadow, worn and crumbling from years of neglect. Thomas's eyes gleamed with curiosity as he examined the gaps between the stones, imagining secret tunnels or hidden passages beneath the earth. With careful hands and nimble steps, the children crawled through the largest opening, emerging on the other side into a grove of young trees and tangled shrubs. The air was cooler here, carrying the scent of earth and moss, and sunlight filtered softly through the leaves, creating patterns that danced across the ground. The grove seemed untouched by time, and Thomas felt a thrill of discovery, as if he had stepped into a secret world known only to a few brave explorers. They wandered through the grove, spotting small creatures, squirrels darting along branches, birds nesting in hidden corners, and even a family of deer grazing quietly in the distance. Every sight sparked imagination and conversation. Thomas imagined knights hiding in the shadows, fairies flitting between the leaves, and treasures buried beneath the roots of ancient trees. The children built small forts from fallen branches, pretending they were defending a hidden kingdom from unseen invaders. A sudden stumble over a moss-covered stone made Thomas laugh, the sound echoing through the grove, followed by the giggles of his friends as they helped each other regain balance. Even minor challenges became thrilling moments, each one teaching lessons about teamwork, patience, and bravery in a world full of small wonders. As the afternoon sun climbed high, Thomas and his friends discovered a narrow stream winding through the grove, its clear water bubbling over smooth stones. They dipped their hands in, watching minnows dart away, and fashioned small rafts from leaves and twigs, racing them along the water's surface. The gentle current carried the tiny rafts, while the children cheered and imagined secret messages being delivered to distant lands. Hours passed in this manner, filled with laughter, discovery, and quiet contemplation. The grove had transformed into a realm of imagination, where every stone, leaf, and ripple of water held the potential for adventure and learning. Eventually, the shadows lengthened, signaling the approach of evening. Reluctantly, the children made their way back to the village, each carrying a small memento, a smooth stone, a fallen feather, or a twig shaped like a sword. Thomas clutched a delicate leaf pressed between pages of a notebook, a reminder of the grove's hidden beauty and the day's discoveries. Back in the village, chores awaited, but they were lighter now, infused with the energy of exploration and the thrill of a day spent uncovering the secrets of the natural world. Feeding the goats, sweeping the courtyard, and collecting water became small moments of reflection, blending the ordinary with the extraordinary. The next morning, a soft mist clung to the fields and hills, giving the village a quiet, almost magical atmosphere. Thomas awoke with a sense of anticipation, remembering the grove and the small adventures of yesterday. Stretching his limbs, he listened to the familiar chorus of the village, the bleating goats, the cawing crows, and the distant murmur of children already gathering near the main square. Today, the plan was to explore the old mill on the edge of the village, a place whispered about as both mysterious and slightly dangerous, where shadows lingered and hidden nooks promised secret treasures for those brave enough to investigate. Thomas hurried to dress, pulling on his tunic and boots, and grabbed a small satchel to carry anything he might find on this new adventure. Walking to the mill with his friends, Thomas's imagination ran wild. Each familiar path became a secret road, every tree a watchful guardian, and the wind carried whispers of hidden stories waiting to be discovered. The old mill, with its weathered wooden blades and moss-covered walls, stood silent, yet it seemed alive in Thomas's mind, like a sentinel guarding secrets long forgotten. The children approached cautiously, peering through cracks in the wood and gaps in the stone foundation. Thomas noticed a small hole at the base of the mill, just large enough to slip through, and with a mixture of excitement and nerves, he led the group inside. The interior was dimly lit, dust floating in beams of sunlight that filtered through the broken windows. The smell of old grain and wood filled the air, and every step Thomas took echoed in the silent space. Cobwebs hung from the rafters, and old sacks of grain were stacked in corners, creating a maze of narrow passageways. Thomas and his friends crept carefully, whispering ideas of hidden staircases, secret chambers, and maybe even treasures left behind by the miller long ago. A sudden scurry of rats startled them, and they jumped back with both fear and laughter, imagining the little creatures as guardians of the mill's secrets. Exploring further, Thomas found a loose floorboard and gently lifted it to reveal a small carved box hidden beneath. Inside were several old coins, a faded parchment, and a tiny wooden figure shaped like a knight. Thomas held the figure carefully, imagining it coming to life at night, patrolling the mill and protecting its treasures. His friends took turns examining the coins and parchment, their eyes wide with curiosity and excitement. They wove stories about brave knights, hidden kingdoms, and daring quests that stretched far beyond the village, each tale building upon the other, filling the mill with laughter, whispers, and the quiet thrill of adventure. Hours passed as the children explored every corner, climbed rickety ladders, and peeked through dusty windows at the world outside. Each discovery became a seed for imagination. A forgotten tool became a magical sword, a broken wheel, a portal to another realm, and shadows danced as if hinting at stories untold. Even the smallest details, the pattern of a crack in the wall, the sound of wind whistling through a gap in the roof, became part of the adventure. Thomas felt a deep sense of joy, realizing that ordinary places held extraordinary potential when seen through the eyes of a child. As the afternoon sun began to lower, casting long golden rays across the fields, the children reluctantly left the mill, carrying small treasures and a sense of accomplishment. Thomas pocketed the tiny night figure, imagining it standing watch over future adventures, and together they made their way back to the village. Chores awaited, feeding animals, sweeping floors, and helping prepare dinner. But Thomas felt lighter, energized by the morning's discoveries and the imaginative journeys they had shared. Evening descended softly, painting the sky in shades of pink, orange, and deepening purple. Lanterns flickered in windows, and the village grew quiet. Crawling into his straw mattress that night, Thomas hugged the tiny night figure, closing his eyes and letting memories of the mill, the hidden box, and the playful laughter of friends wash over him. Dreams began to stir, carrying him into imagined realms where the mill became a castle, the coins magical tokens, and the forest and meadow stretched endlessly before him. Outside, the night was calm, stars twinkling overhead, and the gentle rustle of the wind through the trees carried him deeper into sleep. Thomas's childhood was a tapestry of discovery, courage, and imagination, each day weaving new threads of adventure, mystery, and wonder, ready to unfold with the dawn of tomorrow. Morning broke gently over the village, with golden light spilling across the fields and the soft murmur of animals waking. Thomas stretched, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and thought about yesterday's adventures at the old mill. The tiny wooden knight he had found still rested in his pocket, a constant reminder of the thrill of discovery and the hidden wonders that lay within ordinary places. Today, the children planned to explore the small hill at the far edge of the village, where wild flowers grew thick and tall grasses hid tiny secrets. It was said that the hill held a view unlike any other, a place where the whole village could be seen spread out like a painting beneath the sky. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and ran to meet his friends, excitement bubbling in his chest. The climb to the hill was steep, the ground dotted with rocks and patches of soft moss. Thomas led the way, careful to step where the footing was firm, but letting his imagination turn each stone and shrub into part of a larger adventure. As they reached the middle of the slope, he spotted a rabbit darting into a burrow, its ears twitching as it disappeared from sight. The children paused, whispering and watching, their hearts racing with the thrill of observation and the thought of secret tunnels beneath the earth. Thomas imagined himself following the rabbit into a hidden world, filled with winding paths, underground rivers, and treasures waiting to be found. Each glance and each sound seemed to spark a story in his mind, and soon the group was buzzing with whispered ideas of kingdoms, quests, and daring feats to be performed at the hilltop. Near the top, the children discovered a small grove of young trees, their branches twisting and bending in playful shapes. Thomas and his friends made a game of weaving through the trunks, pretending they were navigating an enchanted forest. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dancing shadows across the ground. Hidden among the roots, Thomas found a flat stone with faint carvings, lines and shapes that suggested a map or a riddle. He knelt to examine it closely, and the other children gathered, eager to see. They speculated wildly about the meaning of the carvings, imagining clues left by ancient villagers or secret instructions leading to a treasure buried somewhere on the hill. The excitement grew, laughter echoing across the fields as they took turns tracing the carvings with fingers and whispering theories. At the very top of the hill, the view opened wide, revealing the village below in all its detail. Smoke curled from chimneys, children played in the square, and the river glittered like silver under the morning sun. Thomas felt a thrill of accomplishment and wonder, imagining himself as a young explorer surveying his kingdom. They paused to rest, sitting on the grass and watching clouds drift lazily across the sky. The breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and earth, and Thomas felt a quiet peace alongside the excitement, a perfect balance between adventure and calm. Every detail of the hill, the slope, the grove, the hidden carvings, became part of the story they were building together, a story that would grow with each new discovery. As the afternoon sun climbed high, the children began to descend, carefully making their way down the slope and picking small keepsakes along the way. Smooth stones, feathers, and tiny flowers pressed between the folds of clothing. Thomas tucked a small feather into his pocket, imagining it as a messenger for secret adventures yet to come. Back in the village, chores awaited: feeding goats, collecting water, and preparing the evening meal. Yet, even these ordinary tasks were filled with the energy of the day's adventures, each small moment infused with the wonder and joy of discovery. Evening fell slowly, painting the sky in deep oranges and purples, lanterns flickering in cottages and the stars beginning to twinkle overhead. At night, Thomas lay on his straw mattress, feeling the weight of the day's adventures settle into a gentle calm. He thought of the hill, the carvings, the view, and the games with his friends, letting the memories weave into dreams. Sleep came slowly, carrying him into imagined realms where the hilltop became a castle, the carvings secret messages, and the meadow stretched endlessly, inviting exploration. Outside, the village was quiet, the wind soft against the rooftops, and the night wrapped Thomas in a gentle embrace, preparing him for the adventures that tomorrow would surely bring. Morning light spilled gently across the village, painting rooftops and fields with a soft, golden glow. Thomas awoke with a mixture of excitement and curiosity, remembering yesterday's adventure atop the hill and the mysterious carvings he had found. The tiny feather tucked in his pocket seemed almost magical, a token of the stories and secrets the day might hold. Today, the children had decided to explore the old orchard at the edge of the village, a place of gnarled trees, hidden paths, and forgotten corners where secrets could be imagined and discovered. Thomas dressed quickly, pulling on his patched tunic and worn boots, and joined his friends, who were already gathering near the village square, chattering eagerly about the possibilities that awaited them. The orchard was alive with the sounds of morning. Birds sang from the branches, leaves rustled softly in the breeze, and the faint scent of ripening fruit hung in the air. Thomas led the group along the winding paths, stepping over roots and avoiding low-hanging branches, his imagination transforming the trees into ancient guardians of hidden treasures. Every fallen leaf and twisted branch seemed to hold a story, every shadow hinting at a secret passage or a magical creature hiding just out of sight. The children moved carefully, yet with eager curiosity, their eyes scanning every corner for signs of hidden wonders. A sudden flutter of wings startled them, and they gasped in excitement as a small owl perched silently on a branch, observing their intrusion with wide, bright eyes. Midway through the orchard, Thomas discovered a hollow tree trunk, wide enough for a small child to peek inside. He crouched down, peering into the darkness, and found a collection of smooth stones and dried leaves arranged in patterns, as if left behind by another child long ago. His friends crowded around, whispering ideas about what the patterns could mean. Perhaps they were maps to secret treasures, clues for a hidden game, or instructions from a mysterious guardian of the orchard. The children spent hours exploring, climbing over roots, peering under bushes, and imagining themselves as brave adventurers on a quest. Even the smallest discoveries, a carved mark on a branch, a hidden nest of birds, or a particularly twisted root, became sparks for grand stories. The afternoon sun grew warmer, and Thomas and his friends reached the far edge of the orchard, where a small stream meandered quietly through the trees. They knelt beside the water, dipping their hands in and watching minnows dart away. Inspired by the flowing water, they gathered sticks and leaves, crafting tiny rafts to float downstream, imagining them carrying secret messages or treasures to unseen kingdoms. Laughter filled the air, echoing across the orchard, mingling with the gentle sounds of the stream and the distant calls of birds. The children's minds were alive with wonder, each moment building on the last, weaving a tapestry of imagination, courage, and playful curiosity. Evening approached, and the shadows in the orchard grew longer, painting the ground with intricate patterns. Reluctantly, the children began their journey back to the village, carrying small keepsakes, a smooth stone, a feather, a twisted root, as reminders of the day's adventures. Thomas held a particularly flat stone, imagining it as a magical talisman that would protect them on future journeys. Back in the village, chores awaited: feeding animals, sweeping floors, and helping with dinner. Yet the day's adventures lingered in their minds, turning even ordinary tasks into moments of quiet joy and reflection. Night fell softly over the village, lanterns flickering in windows and stars twinkling in the deepening sky. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the flat stone, and thought of the orchard, the hidden paths, and the playful adventures shared with his friends. His mind wandered into dreams where the orchard transformed into a vast kingdom, the trees became towering guardians, and the stream carried messages across magical lands. Sleep arrived slowly but surely, wrapping him in the warmth of imagination and the gentle calm of a day filled with discovery, laughter, and the quiet thrill of childhood adventures waiting to continue tomorrow. The morning sun rose slowly, spilling golden light across the village and warming the fields and rooftops. Thomas stretched, feeling the lingering excitement from yesterday's adventures in the orchard. The small flat stone he had found yesterday rested in his pocket, a constant reminder of the secrets and discoveries waiting to be uncovered. Today, the children decided to explore the edge of the forest, a place both familiar and mysterious, where ancient trees grew tall and twisted, shadows lingered in quiet corners, and the faint sound of a stream whispered of hidden wonders. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and ran to meet his friends, who were already gathering near the village square, eyes sparkling with anticipation. The walk to the forest's edge was filled with whispered plans and excited chatter. Every familiar path seemed new, each bird call or rustle of leaves hinting at unseen creatures and secret adventures. Thomas imagined himself as a brave scout, sent to uncover hidden paths and forgotten treasures. His friends, his loyal companions. As they entered the forest, the air grew cooler and the light dimmer, filtering through the thick canopy above. Moss covered the tree trunks, and the forest floor was soft beneath their feet, dotted with fallen leaves, tiny mushrooms, and curious insects. The children moved carefully, balancing on roots, peering into hollows, and imagining hidden creatures watching them from the shadows. Midway through the forest, Thomas discovered a narrow path that twisted unexpectedly between two large oaks. He crouched to inspect the ground and noticed small paw prints and broken twigs, hinting that some woodland creature had passed recently. His friends gathered around, whispering theories of foxes, rabbits, or even more fantastical creatures. They followed the path cautiously, weaving between trees, ducking under low branches, and pausing whenever the forest seemed to hold its breath. Every rustle, every flicker of movement sparked imaginations, turning ordinary sounds into the music of adventure. Thomas felt a rush of excitement and careful attention, imagining that the forest itself was alive and watching, guiding them to new discoveries. Deeper into the forest, the children found a small clearing bathed in soft sunlight that filtered through the canopy. In the center stood a large, flat stone, partially covered in moss and engraved with faint markings. Thomas knelt to examine it, brushing away the moss to reveal intricate patterns that seemed like a map or a riddle. His friends gathered, eyes wide with curiosity, imagining the stone as a magical artifact left behind by long-forgotten villagers or forest guardians. They spent hours exploring the clearing, climbing over fallen logs, peering into hollows, and weaving imaginative stories around every detail they found. Even the smallest discoveries, a curled leaf, a shiny pebble, or a shadow that flickered like a phantom, became sparks for elaborate tales of adventure, bravery, and hidden kingdoms. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the children followed a gentle stream that wound through the forest, its waters clear and cool. They paused to rest and fashioned tiny rafts from the twigs and leaves, floating them downstream and imagining messages and treasures carried to unseen lands. Laughter filled the air, blending with the sounds of birds, the babbling water, and the rustle of leaves. Each moment was an adventure, every whisper of wind and shifting shadow becoming part of the story they built together. Eventually, the shadows grew long, signaling the approach of evening. Reluctantly, they made their way back to the village, each carrying small keepsakes, a pebble, a feather, or a curled leaf, as mementos of the day's adventures. Back in the village, chores awaited, feeding goats, sweeping floors, and helping with dinner. Yet, even these tasks carried the warmth and excitement of the forest, and Thomas felt a gentle satisfaction in blending daily duties with memories of the day's discoveries. As night fell, the village grew quiet, lanterns flickering in windows and stars beginning to twinkle overhead. Thomas lay on his straw mattress, clutching a small leaf from the forest clearing, his mind weaving together images of trees, hidden paths, and imaginative creatures. Sleep enveloped him slowly, carrying him into dreams where the forest stretched endlessly, secrets and adventures waiting at every turn, and Thomas wandered freely as an explorer, a hero, and a child full of curiosity and wonder. The sun rose over the village, painting the fields and cottages in warm, golden hues. Thomas awoke with a sense of excitement, remembering the hidden clearing and mysterious stone in the forest from yesterday. He dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and tucked the small leaf he had collected carefully into his pocket. Today, the plan was to explore the abandoned garden near the old chapel, a place few children dared to enter, where twisted vines and broken walls held secrets of a time long past. Thomas's friends gathered near the square, their eyes bright with anticipation, ready to discover what mysteries lay hidden behind the crumbling stone walls. The walk to the chapel was filled with quiet chatter and laughter. Birds flitted between the rooftops, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. As they approached the old garden, the children paused, marveling at the overgrown hedges and the tall, gnarled trees that framed the entrance. Thomas imagined the garden as a forgotten kingdom, where ancient rulers had once walked, leaving behind hidden treasures and secret pathways. They stepped carefully over fallen stones and tangled roots, each step a small adventure, and soon found themselves wandering through the shadowed paths, their eyes scanning for anything unusual. Midway through the garden, Thomas discovered a stone bench covered in moss, and beneath it, a small weathered box, partially hidden in the earth. He pulled it out carefully and brushed away the dirt, revealing a collection of old coins, a tiny locket, and a bundle of dried herbs. His friends crowded around, whispering excitedly about the possible origins of the objects. Each item became part of a story. The coins were magical currency, the locket contained secret messages, and the herbs were ingredients for a wizard's potion. They spent hours exploring, climbing over broken walls, peering into hollow trees, and imagining adventures filled with knights, hidden kingdoms, and enchanted forests. Even the smallest details, the twisting of a vine, the shadow of a tree, or a bird song, became sparks for grand tales. As the afternoon sun climbed high, Thomas led the children to a small fountain at the center of the garden, long dry but still holding a sense of beauty and mystery. They sat around it, sharing stories of magical adventures, imagining that the water once held the power to reveal hidden truths or grant wishes. Laughter echoed across the garden, blending with the rustling leaves and the distant sound of church bells. Each discovery, each playful leap over stones and roots became part of the day's adventure, a memory woven into the fabric of their childhood. Thomas felt a thrill of accomplishment, knowing that even forgotten places held secrets and stories waiting to be discovered by those curious enough to explore. Evening approached, and the shadows grew long, painting the garden in deep shades of gold and purple. Reluctantly, the children began their walk back to the village, each carrying a small treasure, a coin, a feather, or a sprig of herbs, to remind them of the day's adventure. Back in the village, chores awaited, gathering water, feeding goats, and helping with supper. Yet even these ordinary tasks were colored with the excitement of the garden's discoveries, making every moment feel magical. Thomas tucked the locket and coins carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire in the days to come. As night fell, the village grew quiet, lanterns flickering softly in windows and stars twinkling high above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures from the garden and thinking of the secret paths, moss-covered stones, and magical stories they had discovered. His imagination carried him into dreams where the garden transformed into a kingdom of endless adventure, filled with hidden treasures, enchanted creatures, and secret messages waiting to be found. Sleep crept over him slowly, wrapping him in a gentle calm, carrying him into a world of curiosity, wonder, and endless possibilities, ready for the adventures that tomorrow would bring. The morning sun bathed the village in soft golden light, and Thomas awoke feeling a thrill of anticipation. Yesterday's discoveries in the abandoned garden still lingered in his mind. The moss-covered stones, the hidden box, and the sense of secret stories waiting to be uncovered. Today, the children had decided to explore the creek that ran along the edge of the village, a place both familiar and mysterious, where sparkling water twisted through reeds and rocks, hiding tiny creatures and secrets beneath its surface. Thomas dressed quickly, pulling on his tunic and boots, and tucked the locket and coins from the garden into his satchel. His friends gathered eagerly, and together they set off, their footsteps light on the dirt paths, hearts filled with curiosity and excitement. The path to the creek wound through fields dotted with wildflowers and tall grasses, each step bringing the children closer to adventure. Birds sang from the branches, and the wind whispered softly through the trees, carrying hints of the day's possibilities. When they reached the creek, the sight of sparkling water glinting in the sunlight made Thomas's eyes widen. He knelt beside the edge, dipping his fingers into the cool stream and feeling the smooth stones beneath. Tiny fish darted between rocks, and the children watched with fascination, imagining each creature as a guardian of the creek's hidden treasures. Thomas spotted a cluster of reeds near a bend in the water, suggesting a hidden path or perhaps a secret den, and motioned for his friends to follow him quietly, their curiosity driving them forward. Deeper along the creek, Thomas discovered a small wooden plank wedged between two rocks, forming a tiny bridge over a narrow section of water. He balanced carefully, leading his friends across, their laughter mingling with the soft babble of the stream. On the far side, a cluster of smooth stones formed a natural platform, where they paused to examine shells and pebbles, each one sparking a new story. Thomas imagined they were stepping stones to a hidden kingdom, leading to treasures protected by magical creatures, while his friends invented tales of underwater kingdoms and secret messages carried by the creek to distant lands. Every ripple, every shadow, and every rustle of leaves became part of their ongoing adventure, transforming the ordinary world into a realm of endless possibility. Midway through the day, they discovered a hollowed log lying across the bank, partially submerged. Thomas crawled inside and beckoned his friends to join him, turning the log into a secret tunnel filled with whispers, giggles, and imagined dangers. They emerged on the other side, feeling like explorers who had uncovered a hidden world, their hearts pounding with excitement. Small discoveries, glimmering stones, an unusual feather, a snail moving slowly along a leaf, became symbols of bravery, curiosity, and teamwork. Even minor slips or splashes of water were met with laughter and stories of daring feats. The creek had become more than just a stream. It was a playground for imagination, a place where ordinary moments turned into epic adventures. As afternoon faded toward evening, the children reluctantly began the walk back to the village. Each carried small mementos, smooth stones, reeds, feathers, and leaves pressed between the folds of their clothes. Thomas tucked the locket, coins, and the newly found treasures carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire in the coming days. Back in the village, chores awaited, gathering water, tending animals, and helping with the evening meal. Yet the memories of the creek's adventures infused even these tasks with joy, turning the ordinary into something extraordinary. Night fell softly, painting the sky in shades of deep purple and indigo, lanterns flickering in cottages and stars twinkling above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, his mind drifting over the day's discoveries, the secret tunnel, the sparkling creek, and the magical stories they had woven together. Sleep wrapped him gently, carrying him into dreams where the creek transformed into a kingdom of endless adventure. The stones and reeds as markers of quests, and every ripple of water a signal of new mysteries waiting to be explored. His imagination, alive with curiosity and wonder, promised that tomorrow would bring yet another day of adventure, laughter, and hidden treasures, ready to unfold under the golden light of a new morning. The morning dawned soft and golden, spilling warmth across the village and illuminating the familiar fields and cottages. Thomas awoke with a thrill of anticipation, the memories of yesterday's creek adventure still fresh in his mind. He reached for the small satchel containing the locket, coins, and little treasures gathered along the way, feeling the quiet excitement of what today might hold. The plan was to explore the northern edge of the village, near the old abandoned barn, where tall grasses hid secrets, broken fences hinted at hidden paths, and wildflowers swayed gently in the morning breeze. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and joined his friends at the village square, their eyes bright with curiosity and hearts eager for the unknown. The walk to the barn was filled with whispered plans and playful speculation. Every familiar path seemed new, each bird call or rustle of leaves adding to the sense of adventure. Thomas imagined himself as a young explorer, the leader of a small band of adventurers, mapping hidden worlds and uncovering forgotten treasures. As they approached the barn, its weathered wooden walls and sagging roof hinted at stories long forgotten. The children paused at the entrance, peering inside the dim interior, and Thomas led the way cautiously, stepping over broken boards and scattered hay. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of straw and earth, and the sound of their footsteps echoed softly against the walls. Midway through the barn, Thomas discovered a loose floorboard. Curious, he lifted it and found a small metal box containing a few old nails, a faded piece of cloth, and a tiny key. His friends gathered around, whispering excitedly about what it could unlock. Perhaps a hidden chest in the attic, a secret door in the barn, or even a magical treasure left behind by a mysterious traveler. The children spent hours exploring, climbing into lofts, peering through cracks in the walls, and imagining secret passages leading to hidden worlds. Every small discovery, a cobwebbed corner, a shining nail, a tuft of fur, became part of an unfolding story, each moment sparking imagination and laughter. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thomas led the group to the barn's loft, where old hay bales created a maze of tunnels and hideaways. They crawled through the stacks, whispering in awe as they imagined nights hiding, treasures buried beneath the hay, and secret creatures watching their every move. The loft became a magical kingdom, every beam and shadow a piece of the story they were weaving together. Even the smallest details, like the way sunlight fell through a crack in the roof or the sound of wind moving through a broken window, became part of their adventure. Thomas felt a sense of joy and accomplishment, realizing that even an abandoned barn could hold wonders for those curious enough to explore. As evening approached, the shadows stretched across the fields, painting the barn and surrounding grasses in deep shades of gold and purple. Reluctantly, the children made their way back to the village, each carrying small keepsakes, a metal nail, a tuft of hay, or a small feather, as reminders of their exploration. Thomas carefully tucked the tiny key and piece of cloth into his satchel, imagining the hidden mysteries it might unlock in the future. Back in the village, chores awaited, yet even the simplest tasks, feeding goats, gathering water, or sweeping floors, were colored with the joy and excitement of the day's discoveries. Night fell softly over the village, lanterns flickering in windows and stars beginning to twinkle in the dark sky. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, the treasures of the day resting beside him, and thought of the barn, the hidden box, and the stories woven from small discoveries. Sleep crept over him gently, carrying him into dreams where the barn became a castle of hidden chambers, each nail, key, and piece of cloth a clue to magical adventures, and where imagination transformed the ordinary into a world of endless possibilities. His mind wandered freely, filled with curiosity, courage, and the quiet thrill of childhood adventure, ready for whatever mysteries tomorrow might bring. The morning broke with a soft, warm glow, spilling over the village rooftops and fields. Thomas awoke, excitement already bubbling within him, remembering yesterday's discoveries in the abandoned barn. The tiny key and faded cloth resting in his satchel seemed almost magical, promising secrets yet to be uncovered. Today, the children decided to explore the meadow beyond the village, a place of tall grasses, wildflowers, and hidden streams, where shadows shifted mysteriously and the wind whispered through the reeds as if telling secret stories. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and hurried to meet his friends, who were already gathering near the square, their eyes bright with curiosity and anticipation. The walk to the meadow was filled with laughter and whispered speculation. Every stone, tree, and path along the way seemed to Thomas to hold a story waiting to be discovered. Birds flitted between the trees, and the scent of wildflowers drifted in the morning air. When they arrived, the meadow stretched wide and inviting, with tall grasses swaying gently and flowers of every color dotting the landscape. Thomas led the way, weaving through the grasses and over gentle mounds, imagining the meadow as a kingdom with hidden castles, secret tunnels, and magical creatures lurking behind every hill and flower. His friends followed, eyes wide with excitement, eager to discover the hidden wonders of the day. Midway through the meadow, Thomas discovered a small hollow beneath a cluster of rocks. Curious, he peered inside and found a tiny nest, abandoned, yet still holding the faint scent of life. His friends gathered around, whispering theories about whose nest it might have been. Birds, rabbits, or even small forest spirits guarding the meadow. They carefully examined the nest and nearby stones, imagining they were clues left behind by ancient guardians or magical beings. Each discovery sparked stories and laughter, transforming the meadow into a realm of adventure, mystery, and imagination. Even the faintest sound, a rustling leaf, a snapping twig, or the flutter of wings, became part of their elaborate tale, and every movement of the grass seemed like a signal of hidden wonders. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thomas led the children to a small stream running through the meadow. The water was cool and clear, sparkling in the sunlight, and they knelt beside it to watch tiny fish dart between the rocks. Thomas imagined the stream as a secret river, carrying messages, treasures, and magical creatures across distant lands. The children gathered reeds and sticks to craft tiny rafts, floating them downstream while weaving stories of secret kingdoms and hidden quests. Laughter and whispers filled the meadow, mingling with the sounds of the water, the wind, and the distant calls of birds. Every moment became an adventure, and the children's imaginations painted the meadow in colors brighter than any the eye could see. As evening approached, the shadows grew long, casting golden light over the grasses and flowers. The children reluctantly began their walk back to the village, each carrying small keepsakes, a feather, a smooth stone, or a tiny flower, as reminders of the day's adventures. Thomas tucked the tiny key, cloth, and new treasures carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire in the days to come. Back in the village, chores awaited: feeding animals, gathering water, and helping with the evening meal. Yet, even these ordinary tasks were infused with the joy and excitement of the meadow's discoveries, turning everyday moments into reflections of adventure and wonder. Night fell softly, lanterns flickering in windows and stars appearing in the sky above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, his mind filled with images of the meadow, the hidden nest, the sparkling stream, and the stories woven from every small discovery. Sleep enveloped him gently, carrying him into dreams where the meadow transformed into a vast kingdom, each feather, stone, and flower a key to new adventures, magical creatures, and secret paths. His imagination stretched endlessly, filled with curiosity, courage, and the quiet thrill of childhood, ready for whatever surprises the next day might bring. The sun rose slowly over the village, casting a soft, golden glow across the cottages and fields. Thomas awoke with a quiet excitement, thinking of yesterday's adventures in the meadow, the hidden nest, sparkling stream, and the tiny treasures collected along the way. He tucked the key, cloth, feather, and stones carefully into his satchel, ready to see what today's journey might hold. The plan for the day was to explore the hillside at the western edge of the village, a place of wildflowers, rocky outcrops, and gentle slopes that promised both challenge and discovery. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and ran to meet his friends at the square, where their eager faces and sparkling eyes mirrored his own sense of anticipation. The walk to the hillside was filled with laughter and whispered speculation. Every tree, stone, and clump of grass seemed alive with stories waiting to be told. Thomas imagined himself as a young adventurer, charting the unknown, seeking hidden treasures, and uncovering secret paths. As they reached the base of the hill, the children paused to catch their breath, gazing upward at the slope and imagining the possibilities hidden among the rocks and wildflowers. Birds sang from the branches of nearby trees, and the wind carried the gentle scent of earth and blossoms. Every step upward seemed like an invitation to adventure, and Thomas led the way, careful yet eager to explore the unknown. Halfway up the hill, Thomas discovered a narrow crevice between two large rocks, partially hidden by tall grasses. Curious, he knelt to peer inside and found a small, smooth stone engraved with faint markings. His friends gathered, eyes wide with curiosity, whispering ideas about what the markings might mean: ancient messages, secret maps, or clues left by a long-lost traveler. They spent time examining the stone, imagining the paths it might indicate, and creating stories of hidden treasures and secret kingdoms. Even the tiniest discoveries, a feather caught in a branch, a peculiar-shaped rock, or the flicker of a lizard, became part of the day's adventure, each one fueling their imagination and the sense of wonder that made the hillside feel alive. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thomas led the children to a small plateau near the top of the hill. From there, they could see the entire village below, the winding river, the fields, and the cottages, bathed in golden light. They paused to rest, gazing at the view and imagining themselves as guardians of the land, brave explorers watching over their kingdom. Inspired by the plateau, the children began a game of discovery, each pretending to be a different character in a grand adventure. Knights, explorers, and guardians of hidden treasures. They crawled under rocks, climbed over boulders, and peered into shadowed corners, letting their imagination transform the hillside into a kingdom of mystery and possibility. Evening approached, and the sun dipped lower, painting the landscape in shades of gold, orange, and violet. Reluctantly, the children began their descent, each carrying a small keepsake, a smooth stone, a feather, or a wildflower to remind them of the day's discoveries. Thomas tucked the engraved stone and other treasures carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories it would inspire. Back in the village, the evening chores awaited, tending animals, gathering water, and helping with the supper. Yet even these ordinary tasks were colored with the joy and excitement of the hillside, turning daily routine into reflection on adventure and discovery. As night fell, lanterns flickered in windows and stars twinkled across the sky. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures of the day, and thought of the hillside, the hidden crevice, the engraved stone, and the stories they had created. Sleep crept over him slowly, carrying him into dreams where the hillside became a vast kingdom of secret paths, enchanted treasures, and magical creatures. Every rock, stone, and feather transformed into clues and symbols, sparking new adventures in his imagination. Thomas drifted into a gentle sleep, ready for tomorrow's explorations, curious, brave, and full of wonder. The morning sun bathed the village in gentle gold, casting long shadows over the fields and cottages. Thomas awoke with a sense of eager anticipation, thinking about yesterday's adventures on the hillside and the engraved stone they had discovered. Today, the plan was to explore the old mill at the edge of the village, a place that had long been abandoned and whispered about in quiet tales, where the creaking wheel and moss-covered stones hinted at forgotten stories and hidden corners. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and ran to meet his friends at the village square, their faces bright with excitement, ready to uncover the secrets of the day. The walk to the mill was filled with chatter and laughter, each child speculating about the mysteries that might await. Birds sang from the branches, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of earth and wild flowers. As they approached the mill, its weathered wooden walls and broken roof gave the impression of a place frozen in time. Thomas led the way cautiously, stepping over fallen beams and piles of leaves, imagining that the building might contain hidden treasures or secret messages left by those who had worked there long ago. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and moss, and their footsteps echoed softly against the walls, adding a sense of suspense and excitement to every movement. Midway through the mill, Thomas discovered a small trap door beneath a pile of old sacks. Curious, he lifted it and found a narrow passage leading into darkness. The children exchanged excited whispers, imagining that it was a secret tunnel to a hidden world beneath the village. They crawled through cautiously, their hearts pounding with anticipation, every creak and rustle of the old wood adding to the thrill. Inside the passage, they found a collection of old tools, a faded piece of cloth, and a small, intricately carved wooden box. Thomas carefully opened the box, revealing a few rusted coins and a tiny ornate key, each item sparking new stories and imaginative adventures. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the children explored the upper floors of the mill, crawling along beams and peering through broken windows. Each discovery became part of a larger story. A feather caught in a crack became the token of a forest guardian. A small rusted nail transformed into a magical artifact, and the wooden box, a treasure chest, guarding ancient secrets. Thomas and his friends spent hours weaving tales of knights, hidden kingdoms, and enchanted creatures, their laughter echoing through the old mill and blending with the soft sound of wind moving through the broken roof. Even ordinary details, the way sunlight filtered through holes, the smell of moss and wood, or the creak of a beam, became sparks for imagination, turning the abandoned mill into a realm of wonder. Evening approached, and shadows stretched across the village, painting the mill and surrounding fields in hues of gold and violet. Reluctantly, the children began the walk back to the village, each carrying small mementos, a feather, a coin, or a piece of cloth, as reminders of their adventure. Thomas tucked the tiny key and wooden box carefully into his satchel, imagining the hidden secrets it might reveal in the future. Back in the village, chores awaited. Feeding animals, fetching water, and helping with the evening meal. Yet even these mundane tasks were infused with the excitement of the mill, turning ordinary moments into reflections on adventure and discovery. Night fell softly, lanterns flickering in the windows, and stars twinkled in the dark sky above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures from the mill, and thought of the hidden passage, the carved box, and the stories woven from every small discovery. Sleep crept over him gently, carrying him into dreams where the mill transformed into a castle of secret chambers, hidden treasures, and magical paths. Each beam, coin, and feather became part of an endless adventure, and Thomas drifted into gentle slumber, ready for whatever mysteries the next day might bring. The morning light spilled gently across the village, warming the cottages and fields with a golden glow. Thomas awoke with a quiet thrill, thinking of the mill and the carved wooden box they had discovered yesterday. Today, the plan was to explore the riverbank that ran along the eastern edge of the village, a place filled with reeds, smooth stones, and hidden nooks, where sunlight danced on the water and tiny creatures darted beneath its surface. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and hurried to meet his friends at the village square, where their bright eyes reflected the excitement and curiosity that bubbled within them. The walk to the riverbank was filled with whispers and laughter, each child sharing stories of what might be waiting for them along the water's edge. Birds chirped overhead, and the faint rustle of leaves mingled with the sound of distant farm animals. As they approached the river, the sight of the sparkling water glinting in the sunlight made Thomas's heart race. He knelt beside the edge, dipping his fingers into the cool, clear water, and watched tiny fish dart between the rocks. Reeds swayed gently in the breeze, hiding small creatures, and Thomas imagined they were guardians of a secret kingdom beneath the surface, keeping watch over treasures yet to be discovered. Midway along the riverbank, Thomas discovered a small wooden plank wedged between rocks, forming a makeshift bridge over a narrow section of water. Carefully, he led his friends across, their laughter mingling with the soft babble of the river. On the far side, they found a hollow tree, its trunk wide enough for a small child to crawl inside. Thomas peeked into the hollow and found a collection of smooth stones, each with faint markings like a secret message left behind. His friends gathered around, imagining tales of hidden codes, magical creatures, and ancient travelers who might have left clues along the river. Each stone, feather, or tiny shell became part of a larger story, weaving imagination with adventure as the children explored every nook and cranny. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the children followed the river further, discovering small inlets and shallow pools where frogs hopped and dragonflies darted. They spent hours crafting tiny rafts from twigs and leaves, floating them downstream and imagining messages being carried to distant lands. Every ripple in the water, every shadow cast by the reeds became part of an unfolding adventure, transforming the ordinary riverbank into a magical kingdom of possibilities. Thomas led them to a small waterfall cascading over smooth stones, and the children paused to marvel at its beauty, imagining it as the entrance to an underwater palace or a hidden grotto filled with treasures. Evening approached, and the golden light faded, painting the riverbank in warm hues of amber and violet. Reluctantly, the children began their walk back to the village, each carrying small keepsakes, a smooth stone, a feather, or a tiny shell to remind them of the day's discoveries. Thomas tucked the marked stones, carved wooden box, and other treasures carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire in the coming days. Back in the village, the evening chores awaited, gathering water, feeding animals, and helping with the supper. Yet even these ordinary tasks were infused with the thrill and joy of the riverbank, making each moment feel magical and alive. Night fell softly over the village, lanterns flickering in windows and stars twinkling above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures from the riverbank, and thought of the hollow tree, the marked stones, and the stories they had woven together. Sleep enveloped him gently, carrying him into dreams where the river transformed into a vast kingdom of secret paths, hidden treasures, and enchanted creatures. Each stone, feather, and ripple of water became a clue in an endless adventure, and Thomas drifted into slumber, ready for whatever mysteries and wonders tomorrow would bring. The morning sun filtered softly through the windows of the cottages, spilling golden light over the village and awakening the fields with warmth. Thomas awoke with a thrill of anticipation, thinking of the riverbank and the marked stones discovered yesterday. Today's adventure would take the children to the forest on the northern edge of the village, a place filled with towering trees, twisted roots, and the earth and moss. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and gathered his satchel filled with small treasures, feathers, stones, coins, and the tiny key. At the village square, his friends awaited, eyes bright and voices whispering excitedly about the forest's secrets, eager to see what wonders awaited them. The walk to the forest was alive with chatter and laughter, the children speculating about hidden paths, secret creatures, and long-forgotten treasures. Birds sang from the branches above, and the wind carried hints of flowers and damp earth. As they approached the tree line, the children paused, marveling at the towering trunks and dense foliage. Thomas led the way cautiously, imagining the forest as a vast kingdom where knights, explorers, and magical beings roamed, guarding secrets and treasures that only the brave could find. Every rustle of leaves, every shaft of sunlight piercing the canopy seemed to hint at hidden stories waiting to be discovered. Midway through the forest, Thomas spotted a cluster of rocks arranged in a circular pattern, half hidden by moss and ferns. He knelt to examine them and discovered small carvings on the surface, faint symbols that seemed to tell a story of ancient travelers or forest guardians. His friends gathered around, eyes wide with wonder, imagining magical messages and secret instructions left behind. They spent hours exploring nearby hollows and clearings, discovering tiny insects, unusual mushrooms, and hidden streams that added layers to their unfolding adventure. Each discovery became a thread in a grand tale, with every leaf, stone, and shadow fueling their imagination and turning the forest into a realm of possibility. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thomas led the children to a small clearing where sunlight dappled the ground through the branches above. In the center lay a fallen log, wide and hollow, perfect for crawling through and imagining secret tunnels. The children took turns crawling inside, whispering about hidden kingdoms, treasures, and guardians of the forest. Thomas found a small cluster of wildflowers growing beneath the log, their bright petals sparking ideas for magical potions and secret spells. Even minor discoveries, like the glint of sunlight on a beetle's back or the rustle of a squirrel in the underbrush, were transformed into elements of an ongoing story, blending imagination and reality into a seamless adventure. Evening approached, and the shadows lengthened, painting the forest in shades of gold, orange, and violet. Reluctantly, the children began their walk back to the village, each carrying small keepsakes, a carved stick, a feather, or a wildflower, as reminders of their day. Thomas carefully tucked the carvings, stones, and treasures into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire and the mysteries they might unlock. Back in the village, chores awaited: gathering water, feeding animals, and helping with the evening meal. Yet, even these ordinary tasks were infused with the joy and excitement of the forest, turning daily routines into moments of reflection and wonder. Night fell softly over the village, lanterns flickering in windows and stars sparkling in the sky. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures from the forest, and thought of the carved stones, hidden streams, and secret clearings. Sleep crept over him gently, carrying him into dreams where the forest transformed into an enchanted kingdom, each leaf, stone, and shadow a clue to magical adventures, hidden treasures, and mysterious creatures. His imagination stretched endlessly, filled with curiosity, bravery, and wonder, ready for the new discoveries tomorrow would bring. The morning sun spilled gently over the village, casting warm light on the cottages, fields, and winding dirt paths. Thomas awoke with a sense of excitement, thinking of yesterday's forest adventure, the carved stones, hidden streams, and secret clearings that had sparked his imagination. Today, the children planned to explore the old quarry at the southern edge of the village, a place filled with jagged rocks, mossy boulders, and the echoing sound of distant water. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and packed his satchel with small treasures from previous adventures: the key, stones, feathers, and the tiny carved box. At the village square, his friends gathered, their voices filled with excitement as they speculated about the mysteries that might await at the quarry. The walk to the quarry was alive with chatter and laughter, each child imagining hidden treasures and magical creatures lurking among the rocks. Birds flitted between the trees, and the scent of wild flowers and damp earth filled the air. As they approached the quarry, the jagged cliffs and deep pools of water created an atmosphere both thrilling and mysterious. Thomas led the way, careful yet eager to explore every corner, imagining that ancient guardians or secret civilizations might have left clues and treasures hidden among the stones. Every crevice, shadow, and glimmer of sunlight reflected on the water seemed like a part of an unfolding story, waiting for discovery. Midway through the quarry, Thomas discovered a small cave hidden behind a curtain of ivy. He motioned for his friends to follow, their eyes wide with excitement as they entered the dark space. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of damp stone. They found scattered rocks, a few old tools, and a small pouch containing several tiny coins. Thomas carefully examined the coins, imagining that they might have belonged to a merchant or traveler long ago, each one holding stories of distant lands and adventures. His friends eagerly created tales of hidden treasure chests, secret maps, and enchanted guardians, turning the cave into a realm of possibility and imagination. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the children explored the upper ledges of the quarry, climbing boulders, peering into shadowed crevices, and discovering tiny pools of water teeming with life. They played games of courage and discovery, imagining themselves as knights, explorers, and guardians of a hidden kingdom. Even the smallest details, the sparkle of sunlight on a stone, the flutter of a butterfly, or the echo of their voices across the quarry walls, became part of the adventure, blending reality with imagination into a seamless story. Thomas felt the thrill of leadership and the joy of shared discovery, knowing that every step and every finding contributed to the magical world they were creating together. Evening approached, and the golden light faded, painting the quarry in deep shades of orange, pink, and violet. Reluctantly, the children began their walk back to the village, each carrying a small memento, a smooth stone, a tiny coin, or a feather, as a reminder of the day's adventures. Thomas carefully tucked the coins, the key, and other treasures into his satchel, imagining the stories they might inspire in the days to come. Back in the village, chores awaited, feeding animals, gathering water, and helping with the evening meal. Yet even these ordinary tasks were imbued with the excitement and joy of the quarry, making every moment feel alive and full of possibility. Night fell softly over the village, lanterns flickering in the windows, and stars twinkled above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures of the day, and thought of the hidden cave, scattered coins, and the adventures woven from the quarry's secrets. Sleep crept over him gently, carrying him into dreams where the quarry transformed into a kingdom of hidden tunnels, magical treasures, and enchanted creatures. Every stone, coin, and shadow became a part of an endless adventure, and Thomas drifted into slumber, ready for the discoveries that tomorrow would bring. The morning air was crisp and golden as the sun rose over the village, warming the fields and cottages with soft light. Thomas awoke with a sense of eager anticipation, thinking of yesterday's adventure at the quarry, the hidden cave, scattered coins, and tiny treasures that had sparked their imaginations. Today, the children planned to explore the old windmill on the eastern hill, a tall structure with broken blades and creaking floors, long abandoned but whispering of secrets and stories from the past. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and packed his satchel with all the small treasures collected so far: the carved key, smooth stones, feathers, coins, and the tiny wooden box. At the village square, his friends gathered, their eyes bright with excitement and voices filled with anticipation for the day's exploration. The walk to the windmill was filled with chatter and laughter, the children speculating about what they might discover inside. Birds chirped in the trees, and the gentle breeze carried the faint scent of wild flowers and earth. As they approached the windmill, its towering silhouette loomed above them, the broken blades swaying slightly with the wind, creating an eerie yet thrilling atmosphere. Thomas led the way cautiously, stepping over broken beams and peering into shadowed corners, imagining the windmill as a castle of hidden rooms, secret passages, and forgotten treasures. Every creak of the wooden floor, every flicker of light through the cracked windows seemed to hint at stories waiting to be uncovered. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of old wood and dust. The children explored the lower rooms first, finding old sacks, broken tools, and a collection of rusted gears. Thomas noticed a small door partially hidden behind a stack of wood. With careful hands, he opened it and discovered a narrow spiral staircase leading upward. Excitement bubbled among the children as they climbed the stairs, each step echoing through the hollow structure. At the top, they found a tiny loft with a small chest tucked into the corner. Thomas carefully opened the chest to reveal a collection of old coins, a faded map, and a curious wooden token carved with intricate designs. His friends whispered in awe, imagining the windmill's loft as a secret chamber used by explorers, guardians, or travelers from long ago. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows over the hill, the children explored every corner of the windmill, peering through cracks, examining the old gears, and imagining magical creatures hiding within. Thomas led a game of discovery, each child pretending to be a brave adventurer, uncovering secrets and solving riddles. Even ordinary details, the faint rustle of wind through broken windows, the glint of sunlight on a coin, or the creak of a floorboard, were woven into their story, transforming the old windmill into a magical kingdom of adventure. Laughter, whispers, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the empty space, blending imagination and reality into a seamless experience that made the children feel as though they had stepped into a different world. Evening approached, and the golden light faded across the hills and village below. Reluctantly, the children descended the spiral staircase and made their way back down the hill, each carrying a small treasure, a coin, feather, or wooden token as a reminder of their adventure. Thomas tucked the map, coins, and other trinkets carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire in the days ahead. Back in the village, chores awaited, gathering water, feeding animals, and helping with supper. Yet, even these simple tasks felt infused with magic and excitement, colored by the thrill of discovery and imagination that the windmill had inspired. Night fell softly, lanterns flickering in the windows, and stars sparkled above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, holding the treasures from the windmill close, and thought of the spiral staircase, hidden chest, and mysterious wooden token. Sleep crept over him gently, carrying him into dreams where the windmill became a castle of secret chambers, magical treasures, and enchanted guardians. Every beam, coin, and shadow transformed into an element of endless adventure, and Thomas drifted into a peaceful slumber, eager for whatever mysteries the next day might bring. The morning light crept softly over the village, casting golden hues across the fields and cottages. Thomas awoke with a quiet excitement, recalling yesterday's adventure at the old windmill. The spiral staircase, hidden chest, and the intricate wooden token that had sparked so many imaginative stories. Today, the children planned to explore the abandoned chapel at the far end of the village, a small weathered structure covered in ivy and moss, where broken windows and crumbling walls hinted at centuries of forgotten history. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and packed his satchel with all the small treasures he had collected so far: the key, carved box, coins, feathers, stones, and the wooden token. At the village square, his friends gathered, eyes bright and voices hushed with excitement, eager to uncover the chapel's secrets. The walk to the chapel was filled with whispers and laughter, each child speculating about what might await inside. Birds chirped in the trees, and the gentle breeze carried the earthy scent of moss and old stone. As they approached the chapel, its crumbling facade and broken roof created an aura of mystery and intrigue. Thomas led the way cautiously, stepping over fallen stones and peering through cracks, imagining the chapel as a hidden palace where ancient guardians might have left treasures or messages for those brave enough to explore. Every shadow, beam of sunlight, and rustle of ivy seemed to hint at stories waiting to be discovered. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of damp stone and old wood. Sunlight streamed through broken stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the cracked floor. The children explored carefully, discovering scattered pews, fragments of old books, and faded carvings on the walls. Thomas noticed a small alcove behind the altar, partially hidden by fallen stones. Curiosity piqued, he crawled inside and found a dusty, leather-bound journal with pages yellowed by time. His friends gathered around as Thomas carefully opened the journal, revealing hand-drawn maps, sketches, and faint writing that seemed to tell stories of travelers, secret paths, and hidden treasures within and beyond the village. The children whispered in awe, imagining themselves following the journal's clues and uncovering adventures left behind centuries ago. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thomas and his friends explored the chapel's upper level, peering through cracks in the roof and examining intricate carvings on the walls. Each discovery fueled their imagination. A broken pew became a hidden doorway, a faded carving transformed into a magical symbol, and the journal inspired a series of secret quests. The children spent hours weaving stories of brave explorers, enchanted guardians, and secret kingdoms, their laughter echoing softly through the empty chapel. Even the smallest details, the glint of sunlight on a coin, the creak of an old floorboard, or the rustle of leaves outside, became threads in their elaborate adventure, blending reality with imagination. Evening approached, and shadows stretched long across the village and chapel. Reluctantly, the children began their walk back, each carrying a small treasure, a feather, a coin, or a piece of the journal, as a reminder of the day's discoveries. Thomas carefully tucked the journal, coins, wooden token, and other trinkets into his satchel, imagining the adventures they might inspire in the coming days. Back in the village, chores awaited: feeding animals, gathering water, and helping with the evening meal. Yet even these ordinary tasks felt infused with the excitement and wonder of the chapel, making every moment magical and alive with possibility. Night fell softly, lanterns flickering in the windows, and stars sparkled in the sky above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, holding the treasures of the chapel close, and thought of the hidden alcove, ancient journal, and the stories woven from their discoveries. Sleep crept over him gently, carrying him into dreams where the chapel transformed into a palace of secret chambers, enchanted treasures, and mysterious guardians. Every beam, coin, and page became part of an endless adventure, and Thomas drifted into slumber, ready for the mysteries and discoveries that tomorrow would bring. The morning sun bathed the village in soft golden light, casting long shadows across cottages, fields, and winding paths. Thomas awoke with a quiet thrill, remembering yesterday's adventure at the abandoned chapel, the hidden alcove, the ancient journal, and the treasures they had found. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and packed his satchel with the key, coins, feathers, stones, the carved wooden box, and the journal. At the village square, his friends gathered, eyes bright and full of anticipation, whispering excitedly about the new adventure and the secrets that awaited them. The walk to the riverbank beneath the stone bridge was alive with chatter and laughter. Birds flitted through the trees, and the air smelled of damp earth, wild flowers, and river water. As they approached the bridge, its moss-covered stones and the gentle rush of water beneath gave the place a sense of mystery and enchantment. Thomas led the way carefully, imagining the bridge as a gateway to hidden kingdoms, secret passages, and treasures waiting to be discovered. Halfway along the riverbank, Thomas discovered a hollow at the base of an old tree, hidden behind a curtain of ivy. He knelt to peer inside and found a small, intricately carved box, tucked away among fallen leaves and twigs. His friends gathered around, eyes wide with curiosity, imagining it as a treasure chest left behind by forest guardians or travelers from long ago. Inside, they found tiny trinkets, a carved figurine, a smooth stone, and a small faded map. The children whispered about secret messages, magical artifacts, and hidden paths, each item becoming part of a larger adventure that blended reality with imagination. As the afternoon sun rose higher, Thomas led the children along the winding river path, discovering small pools teeming with life, reeds that rustled like whispers, and rocks with faint, mysterious markings. They played games of exploration and courage, imagining themselves as knights, explorers, and guardians of secret treasures. Every discovery, the glint of sunlight on a stone, the flutter of a dragonfly, or the soft murmur of the river, added to their story, transforming the riverbank into a magical realm of possibility. Thomas felt the thrill of leadership and the joy of shared adventure, knowing that each new find sparked endless stories and imagination. Evening approached, and the golden light faded into shades of orange and violet, painting the river and forest in soft colors. Reluctantly, the children began the walk back to the village, each carrying a small keepsake, a feather, stone, or piece of the carved box, to remind them of the day's adventures. Thomas tucked the trinkets, coins, key, and journal carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire in the days to come. Back in the village, evening chores awaited, feeding animals, gathering water, and helping with supper. Night fell gently over the village, lanterns flickering in windows, and stars twinkled in the sky above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures from the riverbank and bridge, thinking of the hidden hollow tiny trinkets and the secret paths waiting to be explored. Sleep crept over him softly, carrying him into dreams where the river, bridge, and forest became a kingdom of endless adventure, filled with hidden treasures, enchanted creatures, and magical quests. Every stone, feather, and carved item became a clue in the story of imagination and discovery, and Thomas drifted into slumber, ready for whatever mysteries tomorrow would bring. The first rays of the morning sun spilled gently across the village, illuminating cottages, fields, and winding paths with a soft, golden glow. Thomas awoke with a spark of excitement, thinking of yesterday's adventure along the riverbank and the stone bridge, the hidden hollow, the carved trinkets, and the tiny map that had filled their imaginations with possibilities. Today, the children planned to explore the hilltop ruins of an old watchtower, a tall stone structure long abandoned but standing proudly against the sky, hinting at stories of guardians, secret messages, and forgotten treasures. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and packed his satchel with all his collected treasures. The key, carved box, coins, feathers, smooth stones, journal, and the small trinkets from the riverbank. At the village square, his friends gathered, eyes wide with anticipation, eager to embark on the day's adventure. The walk to the hilltop ruins was filled with laughter, whispers, and speculation. Birds sang in the trees, and the scent of wildflowers and damp earth mingled with the gentle breeze. As they approached the hill, the jagged stones of the watchtower came into view, their weathered surfaces covered in moss and ivy. Thomas led the way carefully, imagining the tower as a castle of secrets, where hidden staircases, treasure chambers, and messages from long-ago guardians might await. Every step over loose stones and roots added to the thrill, and every rustle of leaves or glint of sunlight seemed to hint at mysteries yet to be uncovered. Midway up the hill, Thomas discovered a small, narrow passage, partially hidden by crumbling stones. Curiosity piqued, he crawled inside, beckoning his friends to follow. Within the passage, they found the remains of old steps leading to the top of the tower, their surfaces worn smooth by years of wind and rain. As they climbed cautiously, their imaginations ran wild with visions of hidden treasure rooms, secret letters, and messages carved into the stone by long-forgotten guardians. At the summit, the children found a small chamber with remnants of old furniture, fragments of scrolls, and a tiny wooden box tucked into a corner. Thomas opened the box to reveal a few small coins, a delicate feather, and an intricately carved key. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thomas and his friends explored the tower thoroughly, peering through cracks, examining the stones, and imagining magical creatures hiding within. The tower became a kingdom of imagination, each beam, fragment, and shadow transformed into part of a larger story. A broken step became a secret doorway, a carved stone symbol a magical clue, and the tiny box a treasure chest containing enchanted artifacts. Evening descended over the village, painting the ruins in hues of orange, gold, and violet. Reluctantly, the children made their way back down the hill, each carrying a small keepsake, a feather, coin, or piece of the carved key, as a reminder of the day's adventures. Thomas tucked the collected treasures carefully into his satchel, imagining the stories and quests they would inspire in the coming days. Back in the village, evening chores awaited: feeding animals, fetching water, and helping with supper. Night fell softly over the village, lanterns flickering in the windows, and stars twinkled high above. Every stone, feather, and coin became part of an endless story, and Thomas drifted peacefully into slumber, ready for the wonders and mysteries that tomorrow would bring. The morning sun rose softly over the village, painting cottages, fields, and winding paths in warm golden light. Thomas awoke with a mixture of excitement and reflection, thinking of the past day's adventures, the riverbank, the forest, the quarry, the windmill, the chapel, the stone bridge, and the hilltop watchtower. Each day had been filled with discoveries, treasures, and imagination, and today they planned their final exploration, a journey to the edge of the old forest, a place whispered about in village tales where ancient stones lay scattered and long-forgotten secrets might be uncovered. Thomas dressed quickly, fastening his tunic and boots, and packed his satchel with all the treasures he had gathered over the weeks: the carved key, wooden box, coins, feathers, smooth stones, the journal, and tiny trinkets from every adventure. At the village square, his friends gathered one last time, their eyes bright and faces beaming with anticipation, ready to make today's adventure the most magical of all. The walk to the forest edge was filled with laughter, whispers, and memories. Birds sang in the trees, and the air smelled of moss, earth, and wildflowers. As they approached the forest, the ancient stones came into view, half hidden among roots and ferns, standing like silent guardians of forgotten times. Thomas led the way cautiously, imagining the stones as markers of secret paths, enchanted boundaries, and hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. Each step over moss-covered roots, each glimmer of sunlight on the stones, seemed to whisper tales of explorers and guardians long gone. The children's imagination soared, blending the real with the magical, as they stepped carefully among the ancient markers, inventing stories of knights, secret messages, and enchanted creatures. Midway through their exploration, Thomas discovered a small clearing surrounded by towering trees, where sunlight dappled the ground in golden patches. In the center lay a large flat stone, upon which someone had carved faint symbols and lines. Kneeling, Thomas traced the markings with his fingers, realizing they might be a map, a guide, or a story left behind by those who had come before. His friends gathered, imagining the stone as a magical tablet, its lines and symbols telling stories of hidden treasures, secret paths, and challenges to be faced by the brave. They spent hours exploring the clearing, climbing trees, examining hollows, and discovering tiny insects, mushrooms, and hidden pools. Every detail became part of their grand tale, each stone, leaf, and shadow a clue in the story of adventure and imagination. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thomas led his friends to a nearby stream, its waters glimmering in the sunlight and weaving around mossy rocks. They created small rafts from twigs and leaves, floating them downstream and imagining messages being carried to distant lands. The forest edge became a kingdom of magic, where every rustle of leaves, every glint of sunlight on water, and every whisper of the wind was part of a story waiting to unfold. Thomas felt the joy of shared adventure and the thrill of leadership, knowing that each discovery sparked imagination and wonder in every child's heart. Evening approached, and the golden light faded into soft shades of pink and violet, casting long shadows across the forest and village. Reluctantly, the children began their walk back, each carrying a small treasure, a feather, coin, smooth stone, or piece of carved wood to remind them of the day's discoveries. Thomas carefully tucked the collected items into his satchel, imagining the stories they would inspire in the future. Back in the village, evening chores awaited: feeding animals, gathering water, and helping with supper. Yet even these ordinary tasks were imbued with the magic and excitement of the day, colored by the memories of past adventures and the anticipation of new stories that might come with tomorrow. Night fell gently over the village, lanterns flickering in windows and stars shone like scattered jewels above. Thomas lay beneath his straw mattress, clutching the treasures from the forest, thinking of the ancient stones, carved symbols, and the countless adventures woven from the day's explorations. Sleep crept over him softly, carrying him into dreams where every river, forest, quarry, windmill, chapel, bridge, and tower became part of a vast kingdom of magic, discovery, and imagination. Every stone, feather, coin, and carved trinket transformed into a story, and Thomas drifted into peaceful slumber, content and inspired, knowing that the world was full of mysteries, adventures, and wonders, waiting for those who dared to imagine. The days of exploration had come to an end, but the stories, memories, and treasures would remain forever in their hearts, reminding them that every corner of the village, every tree, stone, and stream held the potential for magic, friendship, and discovery. And with that thought, the village settled into quiet slumber, stars sparkling above, as dreams of adventure continued in the hearts of Thomas and his friends, carrying them into the endless possibilities of tomorrow. And now, dear listener, the night has grown deep. The lighthouse stands tall, its beams still sweeping across the waves, but your eyes are heavy and your breath has softened, like the tide slowly pulling back to sea. It is time to rest, to drift gently into dreams, as the story fades into silence and sleep takes its place, wrapping you in warmth, like a blanket woven from the quiet of the night. So close your eyes, let go of the day, and sink into peaceful slumber, knowing the sea will keep watch just as the lighthouse keeper once did. If you found comfort in this story, please remember to like, to share, and to subscribe to the channel so more nights may be filled with calm tales to guide you into sleep. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well, dream gently, until we meet again.